My video for July 1st, 2018 is entitled Independence. When? How? Here in the United States, we celebrate July 4th, which is the day the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776 by men of vision. Far from achieving independence, the vision of our forefathers was being undermined from the very beginning. We were unable to keep it. Ben Franklin was right. He knew the charlatans were at work even in his day. People like Alexander Hamilton, who was the baby nation's first Secretary of the Treasury. His plan was to create money out of thin air, backed by nothing tangible. Sounds a lot like the Federal Reserve, which is neither federal nor a reserve. Along with many other patriotic idealists, I now recognize that the money game is itself a trap. It is the means, and I use that word loosely, by which we were enslaved and continue to be controlled. We are dependent on money, and until we can become truly independent, we will remain enslaved by charlatans whose only God is greed and lust for power over everyone else. I keep crying out with what God supposedly said to Egypt's pharaoh, "Set my people free." For those of you that may not know, as I said in the blurb, Alexander Hamilton was the first Secretary of Treasury under George Washington. And of course, he was killed in a famous duel in Weehawken, New Jersey on July 11th, 1804 by the then sitting Vice President, Aaron Burr, under Thomas Jefferson. Just to give you folks a little bit of history in case you haven't recalled some of that stuff. But I've been involved with a bunch of people trying to restore the republic. And as I said in the blurb, I'm an idealist. I want peace on earth. I want to see cooperation rather than competition. I want to see the money game eliminated completely. Now, is there a process to that? Apparently there is. The so-called RV, or currency revaluation, is supposed to put wealth, money, into the hands of visionaries like myself, people that want goodwill for everyone else and recognize the problems that are preventing us from achieving peace on earth. Of course, one of the big things is war is a profitable enterprise for those that control the money. That's why they finance both sides in every war. And people keep telling me, Ron, we're all one. No, we're not all one. We're a greatly divided creation that is at war with itself. If you want to look at it as all one, it's like a diseased body. And humanity is that diseased body that is totally divided. Now, are we to love our enemies? Yes, but we need to recognize them as enemies and wish for their restoration as not being enemies anymore, to be able to make friends out of them. But you can't do that with people that are, and beings that are totally brainwashed and totally committed to controlling everybody else. They want a slavery system, and to me, that's the mark of not only their immaturity, but they're not secure within themselves, which is why they want to control everybody else. They don't see everybody else as equal, and if they don't see everybody else as equal, then there's a problem. And I want to be able to get beyond those problems in my own life and in this lifetime. And my challenge is, I'm getting older. I keep praying and asking God to give me a sign that he's with me. And the sign is a simple one. Make my feet stop being numb so that I can walk normally and so that I can feel secure. I don't run because I don't feel secure enough to be able to actually run. I do exercise, but I don't run. And I want independence. I want no dependence on money. I want no dependence. I'd like to see no dependence on anything other than God, and a God that is truly loving and caring and wanting the best for creation. I don't see that God. I used to think I saw that God, but I don't see that God. And I certainly don't see independence in the country that was supposed to be free. I see increasingly more and more dependence. Yes, I look at Donald Trump and the modern situation, and some people see him as a sort of a savior, maybe a little bit of rude and crude in some aspects, but still someone that's going to be able to deliver us from the con game of the elite establishment. But that elite establishment was working even back there in the founding of the nation of the United States, the founding of a republic, not a democracy. We had that discussion again in the group last night. One of the people there thinks that democracy has never been the answer. That just means the majority rules. But when the majority is ignorant, and when the majority doesn't even vote because they realize the system is rigged, how can democracy produce anything good? It's just comes out, what you create out of ignorance, you only can get ignorance. The same creates the same. That's the way it's always been. That's the only way it can be. We have to be able to rise above. But how? How? When are we going to be able to actually become independent of the charlatans and of the demons that have taken control of the world for apparently millennia? Is it possible for humanity to be awakened? Is it possible for us to become empowered and enriched with talents, gifts, and abilities that will enable us to actually rise up and create a world that works? This world, to me, doesn't work. It certainly doesn't work for those of us that want to be free, for those of us that want to be helpful to others in building things that work. We don't need automobiles. We don't need gasoline. We don't need a lot of things. But when we think that we do need them, they become necessities because our thoughts create that reality. And it's our perception that creates our experience. When are we going to be able to be empowered with increased knowledge of who we are, and more importantly, what our potential actually is? That's what I want people to see. That's what I believe Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr wanted, and people like Alexander Hamilton play the dark role. We've got to get beyond the dark roles and create light roles. And by light roles, I mean roles that aren't too heavy and roles that illuminate things. So you can use light in both aspects. Folks, I struggle, and I know many of you struggle. I get messages from some of you, and I know you struggle, and we have to have something that shifts us. And I pray to God to start taking responsibility for creation. Thank you, folks, for listening, and namaste.